Hello everyone, my name is Darcy Ronaldo and today we will be talking about trauma-informed care. We will discuss why this topic is important and who really needs to be aware of it. We will also discuss some strategies for trauma-informed care for those working with these populations. So let's start by asking the question, why should we even care about trauma-informed care? To begin this conversation, we need to address what trauma is. And to do this, we can talk about adverse childhood experiences, commonly referred to as ACEs. So this is a questionnaire that documents different types of traumatic events in a child's life that will impact their development later in life. This is a really common way of measuring trauma during childhood. So as you can see, there are three different categories of ACEs. The first being abuse, which includes physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. The second category is neglect, which includes physical and emotional neglect. And the third category is household dysfunction, which includes mental illness of somebody in the household, having an incarcerated relative, witnessing domestic violence or substance abuse within the household, and then having parents who get a divorce. So when going through the ACEs questionnaire, the scoring is such that you get 1 point for each of these that one has experienced before they turn 18 years old. So scores can range from 0 to 10. There are many impacts of ACEs on an individual's health later in life, both psychologically and physically. So as one's ACE score increases, they are more likely to develop chronic illnesses, things such as COPD or depression, and they're also more likely to commit suicide. So when we look at a trauma-informed approach, professionals need to focus on attachment, self-regulation, and competency. And we hear this referred to as the ARC framework. And these are the main domains affected by trauma in childhood. So within these things, as we're thinking about attachment, self-regulation, and competency, we can use the 4 R's to remember how to best be trauma-informed in any setting. So this can include education settings, healthcare settings, home settings, even daycare settings. The first R is realizing the impact of trauma. So realizing how widespread it is, realizing the true impacts it has throughout the lifespan of an individual, recognizing the signs and symptoms of trauma. The third R is responding through integration into policies and procedures in the workplace. And finally, the last R is actively resisting re-traumatization. So as we look at these 4 R's, I want you to think about how can you implement this into your personal profession right now. I know many of us are getting this degree and are in this program in order to move into a different role, but in your profession right now, today, how can you use these 4 R's to use more of a trauma-informed approach in the people you're working with, whether that's children and families or even your coworkers right now? So as you think about that in your profession, I want to give you a little example for me as a preschool teacher right now, as that is my day job. So as a preschool teacher, I realized the impact of trauma by learning and reading, particularly about the age group I'm working with. So I am reading a lot about early childhood and how trauma affects kids at that age. Recognizing signs and symptoms of trauma in my profession looks like watching for some of these challenging behaviors that may be used to be seen as just misbehavior and just unacceptable behavior, when now we know that this could be a sign or a symptom of a traumatic experience that this child may have had. And as a preschool teacher, I can respond in procedures that may look a little different. So, how am I handling these challenging behaviors? Am I responding really harshly and without remembering that this could be because of a traumatic experience? And finally, to resist re traumatization, as a preschool teacher, I am not fighting battles with children just to win that battle, but I am primarily searching for connection, which is one of the main ways we can combat um, some of the traumatic experiences that children have had. So, while talking about that, we can talk about trust based relational intervention, referred to as TBRI. So, this gives a model for how exactly we can put those 4 R's into practice in the real world as we work with children. So, there are 3 main principles to this intervention, but I wanted to start with the first 2 because these are the essential components and these have to be established first for this intervention to be effective. So, starting off with empowerment. The empowering principles focus on making sure the basic environmental and physiological needs of the child are met, such as nutrition, are they eating enough, sleep, are they feeling really tired, their sensory needs, and having a safe and structured environment. The second one is the connecting principles, and these encompass the interpersonal behaviors between the caregiver and the child that build a secure attachment. And this is how the child learns to self-regulate through that attachment and watching the adult regulate themselves and also helping the child regulate when needed. So TBRI has been found to be an effective intervention for children and their caregivers because it can be implemented in almost any environment with a child and an adult. So this can not only be implemented in homes and therapy settings, but it can also be used in schools, in daycare centers, in foster homes, etc. And this intervention is holistic in nature because it seeks to bring healing for children who have experienced adversity. I mentioned that there were 3 principles to trust-based relational intervention, and this is the third one. This is the correcting principle. This principle cannot be used without having first the empowering and connecting principles strongly established between the child and the caregiver. And then this correcting principle is then used to build the child's social competence through using a leveled response system. A leveled response system is an approach where the focus is on maintaining a connection with the child despite the behavior and appropriately matching the intensity the misbehavior actually requires. So this looks like then sticking with the child until the connection between the caregiver and the adult is completely repaired when there is a breach. And for those of you who are already working with children, know that there are frequently breaches as they are exploring their environment, they're learning to test boundaries, and this is how they grow, and this is how they gain that social competence, is through this back and forth. So this is the philosophy from the creators of trust-based relational intervention. And it goes, stay calm no matter what, see the need behind the behavior, meet the need, find a way to meet the need, and don't quit, because if not you, then who? And I think this last line is the most important to keep in mind. If not you, then who? And this shows that this actually includes all of us. Anybody who is working in this field in any setting where they are having a direct or an indirect impact between children and families needs to be trauma informed and use trauma informed care in their work. There are so many children that are experiencing right now or have experienced trauma in their lives. And as the professionals who work with these children and their families, it is our job to do everything we can to encourage their development and their flourishing. We can use the methods found in trauma-informed care to create more safe settings for both children and adults where they can receive the support they need in their life. By staying calm and then seeing and meeting the need behind the behavior, which is most likely a challenging behavior, we will be able to facilitate the growth and development of children and families across the world. So the second thing I want you to think about is we've talked a lot about how to implement trauma-informed care with children, but I want you to think about how you can use the 4 Rs and also components of TBRI with adults as well. And how can you implement this when you are working with adults that may be clients, but also as you're working with coworkers and other adults around you? Can you use trauma-informed care to create a more supportive environment so that people can flourish? And finally, these are the academic sources that I used in this presentation. I hope you guys will think about ways that you can implement trauma-informed care into your world today and in your future professions. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, guys.